recording. Okay, we're going to hold off just a minute while our third committee member makes his way to the table.
Hello, sorry.
Yeah, your mom's watching you and you're late.
Still says 10 o'clock.
All right, we are called to order on time. And the minutes will reflect that all three members are present, along with the manager, clerk, and treasurer. And we have no members of the public in person, one member of the public on Zoom. Any public comment? The zinnias are beautiful, Barb. We have a deal. Okay, let's just get updated on the old business, making progress on the fiscal year, adoption of new fiscal year. I think you said at the last meeting, Jim, that you might bring something forward in November.
I think
Yes.
that's the intent, to get the resolution on the November meeting. I think short of that adoption, obviously the one thing we're going to need to do is to adopt the four-month budget. Our proposal at this point is I think early next week we'll get a projection using our fund balance software, get a projection from staff. The three of us will review it and then present that to you as I don't think, the real concern that I've got is really more timing of revenue. I think the expenses will be relatively consistent. It's whether the timing of revenue will be odd for that 4-month period. There might be something just outside of that period that we would normally, assume will be applied towards those expenses. That might be the real problem. But we'll have something for you to review before the November meeting. We'll probably send that out just to the finance committee to start.
Okay, and since that is a resolution, we have to have a first reading in November and can't vote until December.
The ordinance, are you thinking of,
the-
or the?
Yeah, the adoption of the budget. Or this is just an ordinance to amend the budget year.
Correct.
So there's a couple things going on. We have the amendments that are noted in my clerk's report.
Right.
And I will prepare those and we can send them out with the 4-month.
Yeah.
What Jim is speaking to is the 4-month budget, and we're gonna work on that and get that out to you all hopefully next week is what we're shooting for, the end of next week.
But isn't
And then,
that something that has to have a first reading before we can act on it? Yeah, okay.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, a part of that 4-month process, I think also we all understand, is the adoption of the budget ordinance. That's really crucial. It has been on our council agenda. It's been provided as a discussion item. Yeah, thanks. And the sooner that is adopted, and I'm not pushing, but it has been a discussion, then I can send that to Treasury, because Treasury said once you have that budget, then they'll send us the next steps. It's kind of like, they're waiting. And so we'll be all set to go. I'm sure that the next steps will then be your 4-month budget, and then, after, and during that 4 months, then we'll adopt our full budget,
So in November, we could vote as an action item for the ordinance to move the fiscal year, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And we can have a first reading of the 4-month budget.
On the agenda.
And we can have, whenever you want to schedule the budget amendments to the current year's budget, we can fit those in either November or December.
We'll discuss it with Jim, seeing as this is the second week and we'll start working through that process. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that 4 months would 4-month budget would run March through June.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with isn't the winter tax bills are due like the 28th of February or towards the end?
14th of February.
Okay.
That's really what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
That's the revenue, okay.
That might be,
We
that
don't, we
might
don't,
be
we
the
don't
issue
do winter.
Yeah.
That's.
We only
gotcha.
have a summer
Gotcha.
tax.
Okay,
Yeah.
for the village, yeah.
but the marijuana money, that comes in.
Comes
in.
March
Activity,
1st.
money, things like
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that. And that may be good timing, actually,
yeah.
if that's the way it works out.
So
Carl's in the waiting room.
Oh, okay, some of the things that we'll work through and with our village manager here, Jim, would be items like that. Like
Okay.
we're gonna review and then go through some discussions and questions and then everybody can feel comfortable.
So,
Okay.
okay, and just to bring Carl up to speed, the only thing we've talked about is the timeline for the adopting a new fiscal year, and we expect to have the budget ordinance on the November agenda for the council, and the adoption of a 4-month budget will be introduced but not acted on in November. And we've got the proposed budget amendments on agenda as we do every month, just keeping track. So any bids on the sound system or ideas about?
We
Okay.
particularly based on the last input from the last village council meeting, I have not put that as a priority.
And I think that looking at all the amendments we're having to make, that any way we can hold off on more expenses is a positive. Okay, you gave us a copy of the investment policy and depositor designation. And this, just so Jim is aware, we had a single document that was the investment policy and the depositor designation. And we were separating the two so that we could change depositories without having to amend our policy. But what we haven't done, we've adopted this policy, but we have not created a depositor designation resolution.
So this is the policy that now applies.
This is the current policy. And it really is taken almost directly word for word from the statute that Ross Hammersley provided us. And it's not
I
unlike,
recognize the language.
it's not unlike the older
So are you looking for additions or
Well,
just comments
the
or?
only thing that we don't have is the names of the financial institutions
Mhm.
where we, that was never finalized.
Mhm. So Huntington Bank, obviously, and First Community. And then, you know, all the banks in Sutton's Bay just keep switching and getting
And-
bought out.
Did Fifth Third just merge with somebody?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know who it was.
I thought that was Huntington.
I think maybe it was, because Fifth Third was something that we had considered as being a large enough financial institution to handle bonds and things like that. But
So what
Should
you-
we mention, I'm sorry.
Well, what you need right now, then, if this is your adopted policy, first, one of the things I really want to do is get this is to create a format for these policies to be.
Yeah,
Because one of the things it's good to have on is the designation of when the policy was adopted, when it originated, when it's been revised, and that sort of thing. There's a good policy format to put that into, and I'll get that together. And then so we have these policies reside in a book, and they're numbered. You know, like as we adopt them all, they're numbered and can be referred to in that fashion. So that, but it sounds like what you need to do at this point is simply have a resolution authorizing identifying the depository
Yeah,
designations. And then,
exactly.
so we just need to prepare that for the November meeting.
I guess one of my questions, and I can ask Jim this later, is should we list those that we have like our water and our
Yes.
sewer bond? Okay.
Mhm.
So we'll get
get
together
all
on
of those.
that.
We'll get all
Okay.
of those together
Mhm.
and create that
Mhm.
as appropriate.
Okay.
So we have that for the meeting in November.
Okay.
And we're really not making any major changes in practice. Other than, and this is something as you're discussing, we've designated the treasurer to make the investments, and do we want to expand? We have the clerk, the treasurer and the clerk. So I remember now we did do that to give us some flexibility, knowing that the treasurer position is part-time. Okay. And then Laura, unless there's any other discussion, I think we're ready to go on to new business. And having just experienced a zoning board of appeals interpretation, wondered if maybe we needed to rethink the fee, since that turned out to be more
We absolutely
complicated.
do, in my opinion, because the whole point of the fees is to cover the costs to the village, and it's not going to if we have to do the notification and everything, and that was.
Publication.
Right, exactly. So to me, it should be the same, and then we could just still say maybe refunded, so if that's, because that was one of the main changes too. And so I would say we should switch it to 500, so it's the same.
So it's the same as
But you don't want to, which portion of that would be refunded? Because if you.
So the purpose and the discussion previously as to the interpretation is that if the ZA is found to be incorrect and the board says that the interpretation was wrong, is that the fee could be refunded. And that was the discussion previously.
Technically, that's what we determined at the last meeting, but it cost us a lot more than.
Well, and it cost us more than it cost to get it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that isn't quite what happened, but
Well,
but it is that it was removed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't
And
have.
I have to say, that was a lot of time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, yeah, hindsight's 20/20, with the circumstances there, but keeping everybody in the loop, including our attorneys, and then it's like, oh, in the last minute, hey, this, there was a different probably approach, and, things may be better, but I think that just puts us in a position of big expense. I mean,
Well, and to me,
hours.
and I know that we also,
Wow.
we're adding the asterisk with the
Our attorneys. time.
escrow policy, and I wonder if that again needs to be added to these. I mean, which ones do we have it on? Because I don't even see it on any of them. Because I thought we were adding it to, and we adopted, correct, the escrow policy?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
Because I thought we were putting it on like special use, variance, rezoning, the site plan review. Weren't we putting it on all of them? Because I don't even, because I know it was there, the asterisk and everything, so I'm just, maybe I'm
I
not
went
looking
into
at the
the
right
share
copy,
file
sorry.
and pulled this one, so I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe.
One of the
maybe
things that
it's
we
the
added,
wrong-
Jim, just so you know what we're talking about, is that we added an asterisk that then said, if that applied to that form, that if the cost went over due to, time with the attorney or
Yeah.
engineer, whatever, that they're responsible for those costs and that has to be held in escrow. And then that policy or resolution, whichever it was.
That's not an unusual,
Right, the township does it, and so we were like, we should be doing this too. We're losing money on ones that require lawyer, attorney time.
Yeah.
Immediately, we're losing money if the attorney is asked, which is common that we have to do that.
I don't know. That's, I want to shoot myself, 'cause I can't get into my old computer.
I think, though, you worked on that. We adapted this.
I think it's okay right now. I think it's
Okay.
just a matter of being
Right, I
sure
remember
that
it too.
when we
There's gotta be
present the
another
new one to
version.
council we just want to be sure the asterisk is on all the different
Yeah.
ones that could incur
And
additional
that we
costs.
bump up the interpretation fee.
I also think we need to talk about if we're doing a site plan review amendment, because that's not on here, a commercial site plan review amendment. Because that is a fee we do not currently have, and do we want it to be just the same as the site plan review all over again? Because it's essentially the same thing happening a second time, or should that be a different fee?
well, I mean, it depends on, I haven't seen what type of things you encounter with amendments, but typically there may be, I mean, you already have a baseline of what the site plan is. So
Yep.
typically you're not going to require some kind of extensive review.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's the one aspect that, or whatever one aspect they're amending and changing.
And I think if you were to have a fee that would be something less than the amount of the full site plan review with that same, and I think most of those kind of reviews do require that asterisk, that if we're going to get into excessive fees, and that's the kind of thing that you should be able to project ahead of time. And the asterisk could say, or the provision of the fee schedule should say that would be projected at the time the site plan is submitted, that it's going to require that kind of evaluation. Will give you an estimate of that, and that estimate needs to be escrowed.
Yep.
If that's is that how you do it now, or?
We had.
We just adopted it because
Yeah.
that was something that I brought up when we were doing the fee schedule this time around, just because we know we're losing money on some of these.
Yeah.
And it's not right to me that we're having the taxpayers help cover because the time, so.
Yeah. So I think what we're asking the staff to do is to crosswalk between the escrow policy we just adopted and make sure that we identify, I think it's in the language of the policy,
It is.
and make sure that it's clearly denoted on the fee schedule. And then on our end,
You definitely have finished it somewhere, because
Yeah.
I've
I
seen the
know.
finished one and it has the
This
asterisk
one's
on
the
it. and it's-
final on it, but it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
We finaled it a couple of times.
Yeah, so
Problem.
you'll be able to find it, it's fine. I mean,
and then I think for our ongoing work, we'll flag the interpretation fee and look for a recommendation on commercial site plan amendment fee and how that would work. But we can incorporate it into the fee schedule that will go with well, I don't think we want to do it with a 4-month budget. We can talk about that. But I'd like to get us in sync where when we're proposing the budget, we're also proposing the corresponding fee schedule for that budget year.
That's actually something that, I won't say it's required by the budgeting act, but that's
Yeah.
that is most definitely a best practice.
another thing that we'll want to, when we talked about before, just saying for the water rates to see see the ordinance because they're in the ordinance, but then we decided not to and they got left in. But because these are going to be potentially changed as well, we could tie that in at the same time.
And the marina fees would be updated.
Right.
So there would be significant changes. And based on marina operations, we'll have to adopt a fee schedule with the 4-month budget. Because they've already decided that they're going to increase fees. I don't know, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, that was authorized, that was approved.
So we could amend the fee schedule based on that action without another resolution.
You can, but again, the idea of having that, having the fee schedules adopted at the same time as your budget, as you're projecting, these are the, you have an idea of how many transient slips you're gonna have, how many permanent slips you're gonna have. So based upon that, you're feeding that into your revenue budget. So that's really why you adopt them at the same time. And it's really part of the same budget resolution. The adoption of the fees is part of the same budget resolution.
And we have done it that way, just
Yeah,
kind of got off kilter, so.
Yeah, this past year.
Because there was a bunch we were looking
Yeah.
No problem.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Okay, well, I think we've got a handle on where we want to go with that. And then we had adopted a purchasing and sales policy update fairly recently, but that was before we made the move to a village manager governance. And so I think we need to pull that policy. It may not need a lot of tweaking, but I think it needs to be looked at, and we need to incorporate the role of the manager in the whole purchasing process.
Plus, wasn't the amount that was authorized got changed, right?
I think that we changed what was proposed in Jim's contract to align with the policy.
It's in the ordinance.
It's in the village manager ordinance that,
I don't think it aligned, though. I think that we went between the two.
probably.
All I'm saying is I don't think they do match.
Okay.
So we're gonna wanna be
And
sure
that's
we
what
check.
exactly.
Is my recollection, I might be wrong, but I just
I recall
recall
that
that
too,
somebody
because-
was saying 5, somebody was saying 2, and then we went 3 is what I feel
That
like.
sounds
But
right.
I think
I was
you're
gonna
right.
say 25, but I think that says 2.
yes,
correct?
this says 2, for sure, I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure.
can tell you that my tendency is to have the village manager authorize purchases up to a certain amount, but there's a variation. If it's budgeted, then the
Right.
amount is generally higher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If it's not budgeted, then the amount is generally lower. If it is an emergency purchase, then oftentimes all bets are off. I mean, it's got to be done and it has to be authorized, then, you have to trust that the manager's going to do what's appropriate.
Yeah.
And it does say, there's a much higher amount for
Yeah.
emergencies that
And
then
we-
just have to be
we
reported.
did, I think, build in that in an emergency, it took the two officials to agree where a single person couldn't make an emergency purchase
Manager
without,
and clerk, or manager and treasurer, or all three.
or at least, and where there were at least two
At least
people in
two of
agreement.
those.
And that's why we need to adjust it, because I don't think it
So-
says manager.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't mention
So
manager
what
at all.
what you're gonna need from me then is a proposed revision of that policy in light of the role of the village manager and the adoption of the manager ordinance.
Yep.
Okay, that's fair enough. We can do that for the November meeting then.
It's so nice for me to say the staff will do the updates where I don't take it home.
Yeah.
Start working.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
That's what you told me you wanted. That's what you're
That's
gonna
right.
get.
That is what we want.
That's what you're gonna get.
And then the last thing I had on agenda was just, we're keeping a monthly eye on amending the budget, and Joni's been including that now in the council packets.
Yeah, one of the things that it's really hard to have that done and get a packet out to you in a timely manner, because my goal is ultimately for you to get a packet a week before the meeting. That's been, I mean, every organization, a government that I've been involved in has done that. And I recognize sometimes, it might come on Monday rather than Friday, but that's what our goal is. And it's very difficult if we're going to do that for the meeting on the first meeting and first Thursday of the month, to have monthly financial projection or financial results for you in that packet.
And I'm not sure that it's something that needs to go every month to the full council.
Well, what I'd like to do and have you thinking about is one of two things. Either moving the date of the regular monthly meeting to, say, the third Thursday rather than the first. But I know people get that on their schedule, and then their schedules get packed, and they need to keep that. If that's the case, what we would do is on a regular basis have not the immediately preceding month, but the month before, provided to you with a full financial packet to understand exactly what happened in the immediately, not the immediately preceding month, but the month before that, and have that on a regular basis as a financial report. And then, but you're still going to be approving the bills and stuff like that at that meeting. The current bills, not the bills, from the previous month. So you'll get two different sets of financial information. One would be the bills to be approved, and the other would be the finalized financial report for the 2 months immediately preceding. And I would like to kind of do that on a regular basis, rather than try to, get the staff to bust their butt to get it to you on the first Thursday.
Yeah. Well, I think we had never, until the past few months, tracked where we were going to need to make budget amendments.
Right. Well, the one thing that I'd like to see as that finance report that you would get would not just throw it out to you as, okay, here it is, but to say, okay, here are the things that you need to really look at.
Yeah.
This was an unusually low month for revenue on this particular line item. This was an unusually high expense in this month. Anything that's 10%, say, over or under budget, we would be pointing that out to you, and then providing, I probably am not going to be able to do that for the first couple of months, but to provide you with here's why I think it is, here's why I think this occurred, and give you that data so you can be reviewing that and plan for the future. So that's kind of what's on my radar. But
all right, and we'll have, at some point, have an opportunity during the retreat to kind of
give overall feedback on that, absolutely.
So
I have a question on budget amendments too, but it's a specific thing. I wondered if, I know that the payroll for DPW is going over, right? But it's not necessarily overtime, it's just going over the projected 3.5 employees, is that right? I was wondering if it's possible, because I feel like it probably still looks like it's not over, because we're not far enough into the year to be over on it yet. But I wonder if we could look at where it's supposed to be versus where we are, because we are over. We know that.
Jim and I have already talked
I
about
just
that.
figured if that was something we could look at in the future, that kind of shows us, because I feel like there needs to be a discussion if they really need 4 people, that it's 4 people, because otherwise the budget's going to continue to be wrong, and we're going to have to amend it every time.
You're absolutely correct, and a good budget you should be in a position to know at any point in time, even in the first month of the budget, are we over what we're projecting?
Yeah,
Was there more money spent in this line item than we actually projected? You should know that the first month, it's not, we have to be 7 months in to know whether we're gonna be over budget. We're gonna know that right off the bat. And that's the kind of thing that I think we're gonna want to be pointing out to you. And it answers the very question that you raised. Are we over because it's overtime, or are we over because, it's just more hours being contributed to a particular line item?
So, yeah, and this is kind of where human resource and finance overlap.
True enough.
Mhm. So,
And that's where, village managers earn their money.
yeah, because the sooner we discover and we realize that that's happening, the sooner you can make adjustments to prevent it or adapt or adjust the budget so that it's not a problem.
I agree.
so. Okay, I didn't ask if there were any additions to the agenda.
I
before
do
we
want
get
to talk
started.
about grants for infrastructure, but we can do that next month if that works, because I don't have all the copies to you guys, because it wasn't on there, so I was like, well, I'm not gonna worry about rushing, because it's a busy week for me, but,
Yeah.
I would really like to see if I could get some help looking at those and seeing what ones could maybe be applied for, especially on Rose Street, and for Mill Pond.
Yeah, I just forwarded to Jim some state rural development funding opportunities that when I went to the site, it looked like there might be some possibility, not so much for Rose Street as for parks and trails and the playground equipment.
There's a lot of DNR grant funding money available for that. In fact, I just got notification of a grant program for that. It comes up in December. I haven't digested all of it, but it looked like it was primarily, there were land acquisition grants, but it looked like the maximum amount was available were $100,000, but it also provided for planning and what they characterize as minor construction projects.
Yeah, and I think what I forwarded to you, the application deadline is just at the end of this month, so that's tight.
It might be the same thing that I got directly sent to me, but I think the one thing that would be the most helpful for me would be, and I know we talked about a CIP, but even short of that, just a list of, here are the things that we need. Like you talked about Rose Street.
Well, and I can give you
That
that
doesn't
list.
mean a whole lot to me.
Right, yeah.
But it means a
So,
lot to
and
you.
it means a lot to me because I do know, so Rose Street is an issue that we have with it's a culvert and it could potentially, it's sinking. It could become a large sinkhole. If it goes too long, then it could be a crisis and then it's gonna cost more money to fix. And right now there are plans and engineered work done that could be enacted, could be filed for grants, it's ready to go, but the longer we wait, the more out of date that is, and then it's not gonna be relevant anymore. As well as the fact that the longer it goes, every meeting we're checking to see, does it seem worse? And it kind of, Chris has said, we really need to get on top of that so that it doesn't become a sinkhole that can't be ignored and then costs us a bunch more money. So that's why for me, Rose Street in particular, because it's been on the agenda since I was made chair as something that was ready to go but had no funding. And it's still like that. So, and so I want to just be sure that we're getting proper attention put towards finding that funding so that we can get it done before it's a problem.
That's an infrastructure committee issue then that you guys have been dealing with?
Yeah. And we do have a master list of capital improvement projects, most of which are seeking funds. There's a master list that combines things from the planning commission and the infrastructure committee.
Fair enough.
So, if there's anything further, then we can ask if there's any public comment. You know, just unmute and identify yourself and go ahead. Okay. It looks like no one wants to make a public comment, so we can, we need a motion to adjourn. Yeah,
Support.
and so we're adjourned.
There goes Carl right there. Wait a minute.
That's funny.
He just left his computer on.